You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. Evil is a matter of perspective. Evil is adversarial by nature, and more often than not, we associate evil with our antagonists, opponents, or even our competitors. Something that's interesting about Fallout 4 is that every single faction, possibly even every single citizen in the Commonwealth, views one faction as evil: the Institute. Now, I think we can all admit that the Institute has certainly done or will do some terrible things by the end of the events of Fallout 4, especially if you decide to pick the Institute ending, as you will kill key NPCs that the vast majority of companions seem to like. The Institute knowingly suppresses the thoughts, and depending on your view of synths, enslaves them to do their bidding. A fair question that has been raised is, if synths are like people, then why don't we consider them equals, and aren't they afforded the same rights? I think another fair question to raise is that despite some of the Institute's flaws, aren't they the only faction that's capable of saving humanity from the challenges it may face in the future? While the Brotherhood and MINUTEMEN can protect people, they can't provide them with food, water, or shelter on their own. For the MINUTEMEN in particular, you have to build the settlements for them. The Railroad, on the other hand, is more interested in acknowledging the humanity of a synth rather than helping their own kind. At least, that goes for the human members of the Railroad. Today, I want to discuss why the Institute is good, and why the Institute ending may actually be the best outcome for the Commonwealth. The Institute has proven that they are capable of things that no one else in either the Commonwealth or possibly even any other major faction in post-war America is capable of. While synths are the most obvious contribution the Institute has made to the Commonwealth, the Institute does seem to have discovered how to cure the forced evolutionary virus. While their methods are certainly controversial and involved many sacrifices of innocent citizens in the Commonwealth, the fact that you can cure Virgil of his supermutant condition is extremely impressive, to say the least. After all, no other faction in the history of the franchise has been able to do that. A certainly more benign contribution that the Institute has provided the Commonwealth is teleportation technology. If this technology was distributed throughout the Commonwealth, it would greatly improve the everyday citizens' ability to travel. It would certainly transform the local economy of the region by making the transfer of goods faster, safer, and much more reliable. Imagine a Commonwealth where you wouldn't need Brahmin to transport everything, and instead you could just teleport objects from one place to another. We also know that the Institute experimented with the creation of synthetic gorillas. Perhaps it's possible that the Institute's Bioscience Division could restore common livestock used by humans before the war, like cattle, sheep, horses, and pigs. Perhaps the Institute could go on to further restore the damaged ecology of the pre-war world. If Vault-Tec was able to build the Gek, doesn't it stand to reason that the Institute can do much better than that by restoring the world's ecology? And hey, maybe even under the right leadership, who's to say that the Institute couldn't develop technologies to prolong and improve the lives of Commonwealth citizens? While Father rejected research into human cybernetics by the Advanced Systems Division, perhaps if the Institute had new leadership, you would see research into such technologies. While the Institute did experiment with Kellogg, ultimately, the request to do further research was denied by Father. I think what's good about the Institute is that they're primarily scientists, and scientists tend to be innately curious about our world and solving its problems. To make matters even better, they seem equipped to design, improve, and refine both existing and new technologies. I also think the vast majority of the Institute's members are probably inherently good people. Unfortunately, they're working under questionable and perhaps morally bad or evil leadership. Of the 5 divisions of the Institute, I think we can all agree that bioscience, robotics, advanced systems, and facilities are relatively benign. The most infamous division is the SRB, or the Synth Retention Bureau. This division is mostly responsible for much of the grief that plagues the Commonwealth, as it monitors citizens' activity to try and reclaim synths. The Institute does have a lot of informants, which include a lot of the various caravan operators. So you've got people like Trashcan Carla, Cricket, Lucas Miller, and Doc Weathers in particular. Not to mention there's also Mayor McDonough, who keeps tabs on Diamond City. I think you'll also find that Father is a bad apple when compared to most of the other scientists in the Institute. You'll find that on one of Virgil's holotape logs that he repeatedly requested to discontinue the FEV research program. Father repeatedly ruled against it, and it gets to a point where Virgil even says on his holotape,
"Personal record, Dr. Brian Virgil. This will likely be my last recording. My requests to shut down the FEV program have repeatedly been denied. We've learned nothing useful in the last 10 years. Why does Father insist on continuing it? If he won't see reason, then I have to take matters into my own hands. What we're doing, it's not right. It needs to stop."
You'll also find that Virgil's sentiment seems to be echoed by Dr. Madison Lee somewhat. She feels that much of the Institute's technology could be used for the good of all mankind. However, she doesn't like Father's lack of transparency on certain issues. She even says,
"Are you happy here?"
You'd think being surrounded by cutting-edge laboratory equipment and some of the greatest minds the world's ever known would be enough. Only problem is the lack of transparency. I don't think we get the full story on everything that occurs down here.
Now, this statement in particular seems to indicate that many people in the Institute are in the dark about some of the bad things that leadership is doing. Perhaps they believe they are working towards a greater good for mankind when they are actually working to further Father's self-interest. Think about it for a second. Notice who asked you to kill the Railroad and Brotherhood of Steel. It's only Father that is asking you to do that. Perhaps if the Institute were under different leadership, you could resolve issues peacefully with the other factions. Or maybe certain factions like the Railroad wouldn't exist to the extent that they do, because you're not enslaving synths in their eyes. Just to reiterate my point here, it's not the people of the Institute that are bad, it's the lousy leadership that is compromising and promoting ill will amongst the people of the Commonwealth. Assuming you complete the game with the Institute ending, Mama Murphy says something interesting that I believe further points to why the Institute might be the best choice. She says,
"You're wearing a lab coat. You're standing with men of science. Visionaries. Brilliant, but misunderstood. I see a land marked up, like a great experiment. Each test a new beginning, each sacrifice an acceptable loss. You will not be loved, but you will save humanity, however you choose to define it."
Now, Mama Murphy acts as the game's seer and fortune teller, considering that she was able to provide you with the deactivation code for the synth Courser in Green Tech Genetics during the Hunter/Hunted main quest. I'm going to consider her predictions as pretty accurate. From my interpretation of what she said, this quote seems to indicate that the Institute are misunderstood by the rest of humanity or the citizens of the Commonwealth. It also seems to indicate that the Institute will stop at nothing to achieve their goals, even at the cost of major sacrifices and catastrophes. The most important thing to draw from what Mama Murphy says, though, is that while the player won't be loved, they will save humanity, however they choose to define it. What Mama Murphy says about the Institute is significantly different from the other three factions in the game, and portrays the Institute as the only faction capable of saving humanity. While I won't go over her quotes on the other three factions in great detail, I'll attempt to summarize them. So for the Minutemen, she says that you're standing with the people and working with them to improve the existing world as it is. You've brought hope to the citizens of the Commonwealth, who now view you as a hero. For the Brotherhood, she says, you're standing with your brothers. You've brought security to the land and taken dangerous technology from those that don't understand it or that can't be trusted with it. And for the Railroad, she says that you're standing with outcasts. The world won't ever know your sacrifice, but you've led the enslaved to freedom, even if they still must hide from those that don't understand them. Based on my interpretation, none of these factions seem concerned with the future of humanity and what challenges will face humanity in the future. While I will admit the Minutemen seem like they would be the most concerned of the three, do they honestly have the ability to tackle issues that face humanity as a whole? The only reason the Minutemen are successful in Fallout 4 is because of the sole survivor, who becomes their general and delivers them to greatness. Would the Minutemen have honestly achieved this on their own, especially after their defeat at Quincy? The Brotherhood is focused on returning us to the state we were at before the war. They don't seem interested in improving humanity beyond where we are currently. While they are concerned with those who tamper with our humanity, they ultimately seem more preoccupied in hoarding all of the technology for themselves. As Porter Gage said, the Brotherhood is just a glorified gang of highly equipped raiders with pro-humanity rhetoric. The Railroad, on the other hand, only recognizes the humanity within machines. The human members don't seem to be interested in preserving their own humanity at all. They may even acquire some disdain for their own kind if they haven't already. To go even further with this idea, while there isn't much dispute that the Institute's methods are awful, you will ultimately find that scientists are more likely to help the post-apocalyptic world than either soldiers or spies. At the end of the day, the Minutemen and Brotherhood of Steel are soldiers. Their sole occupation is warfare and military strategy. While the Minutemen are certainly much more noble than the Brotherhood and are willing to provide protection to the populace, they're a military force solely focused on acquiring newer and deadlier weapons. What kind of irrigation or communications technology would the Minutemen develop? The Brotherhood of Steel are also predominantly a military force now. While they developed their own tech in previous Fallout games and are able to produce their own suits of T-60 power armor, as well as produce vertibirds, does the Brotherhood of Steel really build and design their own technology anymore? Most of the technology they use is pre-war, and their main mission is to acquire pre-war tech and hoard it so that outsiders can't have it. It's clear that the Brotherhood of Steel doesn't have the capacity to design something like Liberty Prime. They only have the means to repair it. And then there are the Railroad spies. While they excel in subterfuge and deception, how do they actually help the people? The Railroad could have been instrumental in outing certain synths like Mayor McDonough, who was knowingly reporting to the Institute and kept tabs on the populace of Diamond City. As I mentioned earlier, the Railroad is blind to the needs of the people around them. If you free a synth, wipe its memory, and set it free, you're only exchanging one group of hazards for another. Even worse, during the Institute quest called Synth Retention, the player is tasked with reclaiming a synth named Gabriel. According to Synth Retention Bureau records, Gabriel was formerly known as B5-92. So what happened is that the Railroad helped B5-92 escape, they wiped his memory, and now he's the head of a raider gang and is killing innocent people. After all, Gabriel becomes the head of the former Minutemen that are located at Libertalia. Ultimately, I think the Institute's situation is complex. As an organization, they have the potential to do a lot of good, and even under the awful leadership, they may be the best choice for humanity's future. Unlike the other factions in the game, the Institute is comprised of people who are curious. It's just a shame that the scientist's time is mostly preoccupied by the wishes of Father. Alright guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, take care, and I'll see you all next time.